Page 514, Chapter 33, Emmanuel in Damascus. Emmanuel was set down by the great brazen or metallic light in the nearby land, or Syria, and he lived there for 2 years in Damascus, without being recognized. After this time he sent a delegate to Galilee, to seek out his brother, Thomas, and me, his disciple, Judas Ischkerioth. 2 months passed, however, before Thomas and I joined Emmanuel, and brought him bad news. His brother Thomas spoke, saying, quote, "Your disciples and disciplesses have greatly falsified your teaching. Thus they slander you by calling you the Son of God, and they therefore set you equal to a designer or creator. The high priests and the Pharisees and Sadducees persecute your companions, and have them stoned when they are caught. But Thomas, one of your disciples, fled, and it is reported that he departed with a caravan to the east, to a foreign land. A great enemy of yours has arisen in a man named Saulus. He is fuming with rage and utters death threats against your disciples and the disciplesses, and all those who trust in your teaching. He is having announcements written to the temples in all lands, whereby if any followers of your new teaching are found, they should be bound and taken to Jerusalem. No distinction is being made between women, men, and children, for they will all be found guilty and condemned to die." But Emmanuel said, quote, "Do not be afraid. The time will soon come when Saulus will receive a lesson regarding his evil thinking. For he is already on the way to Damascus, following you and Judas Ischkerioth here now, in order to lead you back to Jerusalem in shackles. However, I will confront him before he reaches Damascus, and since he presumes me dead, he will believe that he is seeing a ghost." And Emmanuel set out to see a friend who was helpful to him in secret things that involved powders, salves, and liquids that smelled bad. Well supplied with these things, he departed, leaving the city by way of the road to Galilee. A day's trip from Damascus, he waited for 2 days in the rocks, and prepared his concoction. During the night, he then saw a large group of armed men coming, and among them Saulus, their leader and persecutor of his disciples and disciplesses. And when they came near, Emmanuel struck, or ignited, a fire, and tossed it into his concoction, thus producing a powerfully bright light that blinded the group. And Emmanuel continued stoking his flaring concoction, so that powerful flashes of light, stars, and fireballs shot up and into the firmament, or fell down before Saulus and his group, and there were thundering booms and loud hissing sounds, as if from gigantic dragons and serpents. The thundering and booms subsided, as did the hissing, and therefore the bright flashes, and the multicolored fires died down. Yet stinging smoke continued to cover the land and caused the group to cough and shed tears. Then Emmanuel called out, quote, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me and my disciples and disciplesses?" But Saulus was afraid and fell to the ground, crying out, quote, "Who are you who speaks to me like this?" But Emmanuel answered, saying, quote, "I'm Emmanuel, whom you persecute in your hatred, as you likewise do with my disciples and disciplesses. Get up and go into the city, and let yourself be taught how you should live." But Saulus was very afraid and said, quote, "But you are the one who was staked, so you are dead. And now your dead figure or ghost is that which is now speaking to me." However, Emmanuel did not answer him. He left and headed for Damascus. But the men who were Saulus's companions stood still and were petrified in fear and in horror, because they also assumed they had heard a dead figure or a ghost. But Saulus got up from the ground and opened his eyes. However, his eyes saw nothing, because they were blinded, or very blinded, by the bright light which Emmanuel had generated, and into which he, Saulus, had stared directly. His companions then took him by the hand and led him to Damascus. For 3 days he saw nothing, ate nothing, and drank nothing. However, one disciple and 2 disciples of Emmanuel came to him and taught him the new teaching, and gradually he accepted it. But because of the events by the rocks, his spirit, or consciousness, was slightly confused from then on. Therefore, he confusedly grasped or misunderstood much, and he spoke confusedly and taught confusedly. Confused in the spirit or consciousness, he departed, and went on from there and taught the people confused words. Emmanuel, however, remained in Damascus for another 30 days, and made it known that he was now leaving the land, and traveling to the east, to a distant land, or India. His mother Maria, however, came from Nazareth, and set out on the way to the distant land with Emmanuel and his brother Thomas, and with me, Judas Ischkerioth. And Emmanuel started on his way again, and taught the people wherever he encountered them along the way, or in any settlement he came to. There was a new strength within him, and his teaching was more powerful than before.